Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to be presiding over this after-lunch nap, and hopefully we'll tell you something new, interesting about the dark web and why it's a fascinating place. I've been in cybersecurity for too many years. I do consider myself a modern caveman because when I started working with technology, there was no dark web. There was nothing. Like, people were trying to keep their computers up from rebooting 10 times a day. Now we actually do lots of interesting things, but the 2000s, from February of 2000 until February of 2010, I've done corporate work in cybersecurity. I was a chief information security officer for a large financial company. And when I was building the defenses, I never considered in a decade doing cybersecurity in the financial world. I never considered who are the bad guys and why they're attacking us. And then when I went into consulting world, I started getting questions. What are the bad guys doing? Why they're doing these things? Why they took my data? What they're going to do with this? And I started thinking about it, and I actually spent several years trying to consider that thing, going from incident to incident. And in 2013, I started my own cyber consultancy firm that right now is a global company. And, the closest, actually, our European headquarters in Pilsen, Czech Republic, just 2.5 hours from here. And it's absolutely interesting how we figure out how to deal with the bad guys. Ultimately, we go out on the dark web. And we are not only experts of technology, we also experts in cybersecurity, and we are experts in the bad guys. Think about how often the technology changes today and how little we change as human beings, and the bad guys also don't evolve much. So today I'm going to be talking about the dark web and components of it, why I think it's fascinating. I had the pleasure speaking at B-Sides Frankfurt a couple months ago, and I told the story about how we use cyber threat intelligence, understanding of dark web, to stop a group called Killnet. That's a Russian collective of hacktivists that had more than 100,000 individuals among their ranks. And to summarize the way we got into that, we figure out their connection to Russian illegal drug trade and drug markets. And to highlight this, we were able to show connection between the hacktivism and illegal Russian drug trade, which blew up that whole thing into really Russian government disseminating, destroying their own hacktivist group. But the way we got into the illegal Russian drug trade is not specifically because we care much about Russians using illegal drugs, but we actually figure out that the best way to track cyber threat actors, the bad guys, we can also track them by their bad drug habits. So they usually buy their drugs not that far from their house. So if you know where they buy their drugs and the geolocation, stuff like that, you know where they live. So that's a cool thing. But the technology, use of technology, of how they use it, how do you get into infrastructure that's secured from Russian law enforcement, from Russian hackers themselves, because they want to get free drugs. So how do you get in? For years, we've been actually going on the dark web, creating really tens of thousands of personas in order to build a reputation, to build a rapport with the bad guys. So our threat actor alias, which in turn we number them from 1 to right now we are over 40,000, but this was Mr. 9211 that actually talked to a guy who was just building up in 2018 that particular marketplace, and on that marketplace he ran into some issues with PHP code, so he reached out to us hoping that we will fix his PHP code, because he was recommended by another moniker that we are experts in PHP. So he reached out to us, and instead of trying to verify who we are, that we are really bad guys, we started asking him questions like, who the heck are you? Why are you talking to us? Are you really the bad guy, or are you just trying to get information from us? He's like, no, I'm a really bad guy. Thank you. So he never asked us a question about who we are because we asked too many questions of him. This multiple like MFA really works when you keep asking these questions. But the cool thing is that he's like, please help us. Do you have a development system? Or he's like, no, okay, can you show us things on production? He's like, yeah, here's the root password. Thank you. So we got the root password. And then, just to make sure that everything is legal, we're asking him, so we can access. He's well, of course, like, can we, we don't want to screw anything up. Do you have a backup? He's like, why don't you make a backup copy? Okay, we'll make a backup copy. We should probably store it offsite because if something happens to the server, he's like, of course. So we got a copy of the server on our system. Backups, important. Then we said, what if something happens and we cannot get back in the system? So can we install like way back to get back in? He said, of course. So we installed the backdoor. We forgot to disable it when we left. So for years we had access to his system because he invited us in, asked us to install the backdoor, got the backups and stuff like that. He didn't change passwords very often. But the infrastructure is huge. The infrastructure is enormous because the operation grew. They operated over 1,000 specialty drugstores around Russia. And so we have access to a single server. Do we hack around? No. We go in onto a system, understanding technology, found that SSH directory with authorization keys, got into, it's secure, but not for administrators, so we were able to move around the infrastructure, but not everywhere. Like the most important things are super, super secure. So we then, but we realized that one of the servers that had SSH access also ran Ansible, and automation does wonderful things. You can execute any script you want on a remote system to get access to it. So we use Ansible to get into the rest of the systems. Then we couldn't get into really, really, really secure systems because we're not supposed to get in. But Ansible ran a lot of automations on their Zambex server, and Zambex server needed to have access to everything. So we got into Zambex server, ran the scripts, we got access to everything. The end result was to be able to highlight connections between the Russian organized crime with to Russian hacktivism. And this is a benefit, the real benefit of cyber threat intelligence, and how we can get information actionable and make the world a little bit better place. Because the bad guys in Killnet were attacking hospitals in Germany. They were trying to take out banking systems. They were trying to attack the infrastructure, transportation, government, in many other places. And not only here in Germany, but all over the world. So this is important. And the value of cyber threat intelligence and the information that we're getting is not only disruption, but also anticipation and knowing how to deal with information. Cyber threat intelligence is about context and signals. It's not only this IP address is bad, this DNS name is bad. It's part of it, but it's not a huge, huge deal that we need to concern that much about. It's about intelligence, deriving the intelligence, which is a key factor, and making sure that we are tracking the threats, emerging threats, the really big things, and also the threat actors themselves, because their motivation, their skills, their direction, their connections is what we can stop or deter to make things more difficult for them and to get us into a better defensive position. The key component of getting things from the dark web, from cyber threat intelligence, is about actionable threat intelligence, to be able to take actions. Some things that we can generally discuss would not be actionable, and there is nothing you can do about certain components. But when we talk about taking actions, deriving from the dark web the next steps, that's what the cool thing is. That we can say, okay, this is a threat. Bad guys are selling this type of data. They didn't take it from us this time. Next time, it's maybe coming from our systems. Why don't we make sure that this data is protected within our environment? And it's about preventing breaches. One basic thing that I usually talk about when I talk about incident response is that within your infrastructure, if you work within a large corporate environment, you probably have cyber liability insurance, some kind of insurance if you get breached. So my basic suggestion is to hide one single document within your infrastructure, and this deals with cyber liability insurance. It's your policy. hide it, protect it, as your toughest secret. Because when the cyber threat actors break into your network, one of the first documents they're going to be looking your insurance policy. Why? Because your insurance limit's going to be listed there, and if your insurance for cyber liability is 5 million euros, they're going to ask you for ransom for 5 million euros. You're good for it. They don't need euro more or euro less. They know exact numbers. But that's understanding what they're after and what they can be doing. But preventing breaches, stopping them from doing bad things in the first place, that's the most important thing. I'm going to be explaining the dark web, and the dark web is not a place. Anybody who tells you it's just a Tor network with .onion domains, they don't understand the dark web. The dark web is not a place. It's a collection of locations where things are determined to be hidden. The bad guys who broke into U.S. company, the Target brands, in 2013, they breached and stole the record number at the time of records, 70 million records, 40 million credit cards, to decimate U.S. economy in this company just around Christmas time 12 years ago. But the idea of the dark web is that the bad guys didn't only sit on the dark web onion network. They actually talk on Skype with each other. They walked up and down Arbat Street in Moscow, discussing their next steps. And understanding that the dark web is everywhere. It's not only Telegram, it's not only Jabber, it's any kind of components where the bad guys can communicate. This is a key way to understand that they are everywhere. Video games Second Life and other multiplayer games online, this is some places where the bad guys actually conjugate to talk to each other, where they can have fun, interact, play games, and actually commit cybercrimes. Casinos, where the bad guys can sit behind a poker table and spend stolen money for fun. They also discuss cybercrimes. So the dark web is not a single place. It's locations where the bad guys actually conjugate and doing bad things. And understanding the adversaries, where the adversaries are and what they do, how they function. We got nation-state bad guys. Nation-state bad guys are not normal hackers that sit in a hoodie in their mom's basement. They're not. They are actually very suit and tie. They go to work every day. They go into government buildings. They sit in a cubicle and they actually work. And that's what they do. There are no communications among major nation-state threat actors on the dark web or anywhere. They have internal servers that are dedicated to this. They use commercial tools. If they want to have a meeting, they go to conference room, sit down and talk. So this is important. When somebody says, well, can you infiltrate the nation-state group? Not virtually. Physically, obviously, but that's a different way to do this. So nation-states work a little bit differently, and there are some intricacies. Hacktivists work also in a different way. Hacktivists are driven by idea, by notion. It can be politics, it can be a religion, it can be a social agenda. Hacktivists are driven by different things. Both groups that I'm listed here, they are not motivated by money, except like North Koreans, which are weird anyways. But think about it. Anytime that somebody says that nation-state or Russian nation-state threat actors broke into a system and deployed ransomware, you have to shake your head and say, why? Why would Russians government want to steal money, and how much money would they steal to make a difference? They unfortunately have a lot of money, and they're not interested in stealing money. These are not nation-state threat actors. Hacktivists, maybe. Hacktivists, they scream for their cause until they find money and they change their mind, saying, well, we nationalize this or they privatize this money because they're not supposed to have it. For-profit groups are huge. This is the most common vocation for the bad guys, and they sit in places where we don't have extradition. They sit in places where far away from the law enforcement, and they hide in sometimes plain sight. There is also a group called the groups. It's not really a single group. It's a community, and we see different names: the comms, and we got the different names for this. Some of you guys heard of Scatter Spiders. There was a great talk about this today. But Shiny Hunters, also a French group there. But this is a new movement of young men, usually between 14 and 29 years old, who are coming from Western communities. They're coming from Western Europe. They're coming from France, UK. They're coming from United States, Canada. They are part of our society. They understand how we think, how we work. They're not coming from Russia or China, even though the members of these groups actually learn from ransomware and other types of threat actors. But they are actually understanding how things function so they can do social engineering better. They understand different things. But this also, in my mind, that comes is evolution of normal street gangs that no longer walking around the streets and roughing up people, but they're doing it in cyberspace. The COM group not only stealing money, they have the physical racket thing. They have commissioned murders, rapes, assaults, and that's because they feel no compulsion to follow the law. They don't understand what the law is. They don't understand the value of money. They don't respect any of our laws and systems. And this is important to see that this is new generation of attacks from within our society against ourselves by organized crime, organized cybercrime nowadays. But to understand the mind of hackers, that not only looking at the worst examples that hit the biggest systems, I also want to tell you a short story about dumb ransomware, for-profit hackers. A number of years ago, we noticed a conversation on one of the dark web forums where a young threat actor was just asking stupid questions. He was asking really stupid questions, like, he's like, I got into RDP on this system. What do I do next? And it's a live chat, so some people making fun of him, but some of them giving him practical things. Say, hey, click on this, click on that. So he's, we are watching live a cybercrime occurring where he is being walked step by step, figuring out what's on that Windows system that he got into. And this was a large apparel company in Texas, United States, and he was being told how to go step by step. On that particular server, there was a SQL server with 2 million customer records of that company, about 10,000 employee records as well. And for some reason, a whole bunch of unencrypted credit cards. So he was showing the Microsoft SQL Server interface, and he was like, okay, what do I do now? What do I know now? Step by step, he's being actually fed how to dump the SQL database and how to get everything prepared. So he prepares it on the server, on the desktop as administrator. And last thing he says in the channel, he says, well, now the transfer is going to take too long and I don't have enough room on my flash drive. I'm going to abort and leave. So he actually breaks down the connection and leaves. Now, that's funny. I understand. He is not, he's a dumb criminal. Now, let's talk about ourselves, cybersecurity professionals who come in and do incident response. So let's imagine the administrators of, system administrators of that company log into a server and they see on the desktop basically a bull in China shop, a person who went through a whole bunch of different options and systems and dumped the entire SQL database. And you have to assume the worst. You have to assume, you don't know this person was dumb. You have to assume that he took that database, he was inside your system, and you didn't notice. Work of cyber threat intelligence, seeing this information, bringing this to a company, and then forensically prove that he did all these steps but never transferred the data from the server to his system, actually minimize the breach. Otherwise, if you can't quantify the damage, you have to assume total loss. This is the practical side of cyber threat intelligence and the dark web monitoring, because if we did not see this conversation, if we did not bring this to attention of the company, and we were calling them as conversation was ongoing, this would have been a total loss. The big thing about the bad guys, they try to get into corporate data because it's extremely well organized, it's massive, it has technical connections to other companies, and it's extremely valuable. And value of the data, for example, within our companies, is not only on the dark web markets, but the highest value is to the victims themselves, to the company, to its stakeholders, to its supply chain. So the ransomware exists right now because we are willing to pay much more than data is worth to prevent it from being encrypted or prevent it from being put publicly on the dark web. And this is not only our environment, it's also our supply chain. And it's important that bit by bit, everything that we have in our control, we give away to third parties, whether it's to a hosting solution or whether it's a SaaS and publicly hosted or internet hosted applications. We give it to our partners, and because our data is everywhere, our threats are everywhere, and it's not always our responsibility to safeguard that data. So we need partners, and our partners also have our data. In some cases, we reach out to them and we provide them with assistance because we need to make sure that our entire habitat is secure. And this is about information from the dark web that we can be using, saying, hey, our partner is about to get breached or our partner is being targeted. We also understand that the breaches within third parties may be affecting us. You have no idea how anxious some companies get when their partner gets breached until they get good news or bad news that their data was impacted or was it not. We also live in the age of AI and AI threats. And it's not only about phishing, but phishing is also fun because a number of years ago we were just telling our end users to be very vigilant. If you see a typing error in an email, if it's not formatted well, it's a phishing email. Now AI writes phishing emails much better than our marketing groups write real emails. And it does a great job. But I also want to explain how ransomware works in age of AI. One example is the Russian ransomware group Holden. They are deploying a single person within Russia with a little bit of legal experience and access to AI to provide assistance in classifying the data stolen from the victims from the legal framework. So they actually give a lawyer perspective about the stolen data and also a lawyer perspective from how to negotiate for that data payment. But I'm going to give you another story. I'm going to give you probably the most fascinating story about a ransomware group that became active about a year ago, then disappeared from site, called FunkSec, F-U-N-K-S-E-C. FunkSec. This was a ransomware group from Algeria that was completely unremarkable. In fact, they were stupid. They were cheesy. If you never heard of FunkSec, it's a group that made everything in their ransomware gang sound like a very bad commercial. So they were talking about music. They were saying, hey, now we got your files. Your files are dancing to a different tune. Time to pay DJ. Or your systems are in funk. We will fix it for you, something like that. So even the ransom notes were that bad, and absolutely memorable. I remember them because of this, and like, okay, well, this is just bad. It's not funny, it's not punny, it's just bad. But they were impactful. They had a membership program. Well, the Russian ransomware group Lockbit asked for $200,000 US dollar deposit to become an affiliate of a group. The FunkSec asked for $100 lifetime membership. So they were doing like really cheap stuff. They were selling stolen data if the victims didn't pay for $100, $1,000, and they offered 20% discount if you buy that lifetime membership. So they were just different. What they were remarkable for, that they were actually very resilient, and they had 3 versions of their crypto that was written in Rust and was very It's okay written. It was actually AI touches all over the place. AI wrote that locker for them, and it was well obfuscated. And when the 1.0 version got broken, in only 2 days they had the new version because AI wrote it. But the interesting thing about the FunkSec was not that. I can tell you with much certainty that people who run FunkSec have no idea about cybersecurity. They have no idea about ransomware. They had nothing to do with cybersecurity. They were exceptionally good at writing prompts for AI. In fact, AI ran the entire ransomware game. They were just operating prompts and providing feedback. Why? Well, very simple. That whole musical theme was not to make it cheesy. It was for one interesting reason. It was a game that the bad guys played with AI to make AI complicit with them. So entire game was played with AI, and somebody wrote a prompt saying, "Hey, we're going to be writing we got a musical empire, and we're going to be doing this, and ransomware. Oh, that's cool. I will help you." So that's what AI did. AI fully built the ransomware platform. It wrote extortion emails. It negotiated for the bad guys. It wrote the locker. It wrote everything. And this was a year ago. Think about our adversaries on the dark web fooling AI to become a full accomplice in their plans for ransomware. This is not as funny as it sounded. And that's not to mention deep fakes and everything else that bad guys are doing, from nation states to extortions to different attacks. The value of cyber threat intelligence, the value of seeing the dark web is not about just seeing and telling you funny stories. It's about proactive defenses, how to build out defenses against the bad guys who are constantly changing their techniques, constantly evolving and making next steps. But we want to put defenses based on their recent advancements. The dark web would give you these clues, and it will also tell you what your nemesis doing, how they're advancing, and what their new targets are. Knowing the threats, knowing the tools, knowing how to use the tools that the bad guys have on the dark web. This is what we can get in order to get ahead of the bad guys. Because if they got new tools to find vulnerabilities, we can use the same tools to find these vulnerabilities within our infrastructure before they do this. I do a lot of talks. I talk to cybersecurity professionals, to people who work with cybersecurity and many different things. My topic is always, my last point is about winning. And the winning is big because we have to do our job 100% right. And the bad guys need to find one mistake that we made in order to emphasize it. Winning is not being celebrated as much in our community as much as what being frowned upon, one mistake that we make. So winning is about going out on dark web, for me, every day, and finding new things that the bad guys are up to so we can proactively stop them from doing bad things. That's my time for now. Any questions? I think we got...
Hello. All right, we have time for one question. Does anyone have a question for Alex? Bold person in the aisle. Mike, can you... Oh, you're going to throw. No. Oh!
I just want to know if there's any specific communication medium that you have not actually seen any threat actors in any one secure space.
We see them absolutely using everything because they talk to each other, and everything that we do to communicate with each other, they use it there. They use open components like Yap Mail, for example, which is absolutely putting everything out publicly. But Yap Mail is a great place to monitor them, even though they know everything going to be out there. We see them absolutely in everything. I can't think of any single protocol where they're not. I can tell you where they're more likely to be, like Jabber, Telegram, and Signal, but they're everywhere, unfortunately.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Alex. If you have more questions for him, catch him out in the hall. And let's get ready for our next talk. Give a big round of applause for Alex, please.